When did you first notice that, things were potentially off and things were going to potentially start cascading and get worse and worse? What was that first indication that you saw that really signaled that something was wrong there?
Well, I think a lot of, on-chain maximalists have criticized centralized DeFi, CDeFi for a while because of this lack of transparency around how the funds are being managed, but there was never any issue, right? People could always get their deposits back. It was always this liquid system. In the last kind of maybe 6 months, we've seen tremendous amounts of liquidity getting flushed out of the system, right? So people are looking to get their funds back, and stuff like Luna has caused massive institutional players to blow up and assets to be liquidated. So it's kind of this slow deflation of this bubble, right? The problem with Celsius is that they would lock their assets in places. So one place where Celsius had, I think, about 450 million in Ethereum was on the Ethereum Beacon chain, which is Ethereum's proof of stake chain. And in exchange for locking, Ethereum up on this chain, you can get an interest, yield on your Ethereum, right? The issue with this is no one really knows. Supposedly it's going to be within the next, year or so, or less, 6 months, when you're going to be able to withdraw Ethereum from this Beacon chain. But for now, it's completely locked up on there. So let's say you have $1 billion in Ethereum customer deposits. Celsius has gone and they did the math and they said, okay, well, we're going to lock up half of it so we can earn a bunch of interest. And then to be able to match redemption, so to be able to give people back their Ethereum denominated funds, we will use this other kind of pile of money. But we want to earn interest, so we're going to lock up this money. When price comes crashing down and everyone wants their money back, now they've got a ton of money locked up, right? Yep. So it becomes this really big issue about yes, you are. It's possible that you have enough money to kind of back up everything out there, but it's not liquid, right? So you're insolvent. So it would be like if a bank has a bunch of houses and the lenders stop paying it back. Yeah, they have hypothetically these loans are collateralized, but it's not like the bank can have the dollars today on hand. And that's kind of the situation Celsius ended up in.
Right. So one component is they had this ETH that was locked up in ETH2 that they couldn't access. The other component was Luna. Were they exposed to Luna in any way?
Yeah. So I think the numbers are varying, and there's kind of some different stories out in how Celsius managed the Luna kind of collapse. But basically, we know that there was a Celsius product around UST, so you could deposit UST in Celsius and get a yield. They would kind of one of their managed products was giving you yield on UST. What part of Celsius's business model was they would kind of take the excess assets that didn't need. Well, they do. Celsius is still existing. I shouldn't be talking about them in the past tense. But what they would do is they would take out the assets beyond what they needed to redeem, and they would kind of go out and use these assets and kind of operate as a hedge fund to try to make a return on these kind of excess assets, right? So part of, some people theorize that one thing Celsius was doing was they were taking, some money and putting it into UST and earning a 20% yield on UST and using that to either pay out depositors or using that with their own funds or they were doing something with it. So now when UST blows up, yes, you've got, $100 million in client obligations that deposited UST with Celsius, but perhaps they also got wiped out on some kind of other chunk of their portfolio, right? And part of some people at Nansen, kind of whale wallet tracking software dashboard, were doing some research into like what was happening on chain, and some people, some of these the biggest wallets were Celsius, and part of what caused the Luna UST depegging was Celsius pulling out liquidity from UST and from Curve 3 pool. And that's kind of what some people say that's kind of what triggered the depeg. I think the general consensus is that Celsius lost about 130 million in the Luna depegging, which is obviously, a huge amount of money. But yes, they were absolutely exposed to UST. As to how much kind of it affected the business model, there's some questions, but it obviously didn't help. And then, every dollar that you lose is less dollar of this cushion to match redemptions.